Hello and welcome live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Let's get the show on the road with the top stories. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulates US President Donald Trump over the phone on his second term. Says both leaders are committed to mutually beneficial and trusted partnership. India and China agreed to restart direct flights 5 years after the Galwan pause. Kailash Mansarovar Yatra to also resume in the summer this year. World leaders gather along with survivors at Nazi death camp in Poland's Auschwitz-Birkenau to mark the 80th anniversary of the Holocaust Remembrance Day. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are returning home to worst-hit northern Gaza amidst relief and sadness after 15 months of war. And Indian pace spearhead Jasprit Bumrah is honoured as the ICC Men's Test Cricketer of the Year 2024. But first up, India and China are witnessing a renewed momentum in their bilateral relations with the resumption of key activities. In a significant development, Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri recently visited Beijing to participate in the Foreign Secretary Vice Foreign Minister Mechanism meeting, marking a step forward in strengthening dialogue between the two nations. The two sides reviewed the state of India-China bilateral relations, comprehensively agreed to take certain people-centric steps to stabilize and rebuild ties. The two sides also decided to resume the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra in the summer of 2025. They also agreed to hold an early meeting of the India-China expert-level mechanism to discuss resumption of provision of hydrological data and other cooperative steps pertaining to trans-border rivers. Both sides agreed to take appropriate measures to further promote and facilitate people-to-people exchanges. They agreed, in principle, to resume direct air services between the two countries. The two sides also recognized that 2025, being the 75th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic relations between India and China, they will conduct a number of commemorative activities to mark this anniversary. They will also take stock. They also took stock of the extant mechanisms for functional exchanges. Let's now take you across to DD India's Jessica Taneja for more on this. Hi Jessica, it just seems that India and China's efforts to mend ties are making incremental progress since the October thaw.
Well, it started with the military level talks post 2020, which sort of laid the groundwork further to ease the tensions between the two nations, as we've seen in the recent past. And now with Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri in Beijing the last 2 days, meeting with a Politburo member and also the Foreign Minister of the country, Wang Yi, and as well as the Vice Foreign Minister of China. Well, interestingly, the developments do seem to indicate the fact that India and China are moving ahead, especially when it comes to enhancing their economic ties. More so also on the resumption of the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, as you pointed out, and that, of course, with the technical modalities in place on how this will be further executed, and we will wait for those technical things to be sorted out from both the sides. Interestingly, also mention of flights as well. So the technicalities around that, a mechanism would be set up to, of course, to that extent, to have that resumed as well, Gautam. And if you'd see the level of engagement that we've had with the Chinese, right from the two leaders meeting at the BRICS summit at Kazan, on the sidelines of the BRICS summit, the first bilateral meeting between the two, was in fact followed by a packed of disengagement on the border issues that was agreed upon on the 21st of October. The meeting took place just a few days after that in Kazan, and following after that was, of course, more mechanisms that would ease out not just tensions between the two, but also look at mechanisms moving forward on how India and China would further enhance their economic trade. Remember, China is one of our largest trading partners apart from the United States. So it is important, wherein India and China continue to engage on multiple fronts. And if you see the readout that has been put forth by the Ministry of External Affairs, it does seem to indicate that a lot of ground was covered, be it Kailash Mansarovar Yatra or the resumption of flights. You also look at cultural exchanges and also how to ease those tensions when it comes to economic trade between the two. And given that now American President Donald Trump is at the helm of affairs, there are tariff troubles, not just for China, but Asia as well. And a country with whom you share a 3,500 kilometer border, of course there are tensions and frictions, but how is the mechanism between the two countries ensuring that there is that sense and that route of trade and other activities which continue to sort of figure in the conversation, not to also forget exchange of hydrological data, because currently with the announcement from the Chinese side to build the largest dam apart from the three gorges on the Brahmaputra side and the Yarling Sangpo on theirs, has also raised some ecological concerns apart from, of course, the riparian states that have led to some discussion to that effect, Gautam.
All right, Chika, we'll have to leave it there for the moment. Thanks a lot for joining us about the progress being made on the India-China ties front. Now, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has spoken with the newly sworn-in President of the United States, Donald Trump, over the phone on Monday. This is the first time the two leaders talked since Trump's inauguration event on the 20th of this month. Prime Minister Modi congratulated Donald Trump on his historic second term, and during the conversation, the PM underscored that New Delhi remains committed to a mutually beneficial and trusted partnership with Washington, D.C. The PM also said that both leaders will work together for the welfare of the people and towards global peace, prosperity and security. And for more on this conversation, let me now take you across to DD India's Amritpal Singh. Well, hi Amrit, this was the first telephonic conversation between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump after the latter's returned to the Oval Office. How does it go beyond the customary congratulatory call?
Gautam, of course, he congratulated him once again because this was the first time that he spoke to him after Donald Trump took office on the 20th of this month. Now, what the Prime Minister has put out is that from what we make out from what he has put out, there was talk between the two leaders about the bilateral relations, how, the two countries could partner in terms of taking the partner. They already have a comprehensive strategic partnership in place. So how on the aspects of trade, defense, cooperation in the Indo-Pacific theater could be taken forward. And also, the Prime Minister referred to his conversation saying that they spoke about how the two sides could work together for the welfare of not only their own people, but towards global peace, prosperity and security, referring to that the ongoing conflicts in West Asia and Ukraine, Russia could have been discussed. The conversation did go beyond just a customary congratulation because the Prime Minister had already congratulated him when he took over office.
Yes, certainly. And Amrit, how can we expect the wide-ranging ties between India and the US to be taken forward now with Trump back in the White House?
We have to look at, to understand that we have to look at what the priorities of the Trump 2.0 administration are. He's focusing mainly on, in the beginning, the opening days of his presidency, on the issue of migration, on tariffs. Now, these are issues which concern India as well, though we have a good trade relationship with the U.S., with trade crossing about $108 billion in the last year, and you have a surplus of about $32 billion. India has a surplus of that. Now, a rebalancing of this trade needs to be done because that is what the Trump administration is focusing on. So they would be looking at how that could be done. So I think the initial conversation would have focused on that. Then cooperation in the fields of, defense and energy could have figured there. Migration, though his focus primarily is on illegal migration and there are deportations, etc. We are seeing in the opening days of his presidency, the second presidency. What concerns India is especially the H-1B visa. So they could have touched upon that, though of course this was just a telephone call. Once, if a meeting, as is being speculated, could happen either, in the early days of this year, or maybe later when, because it's agreed that the next Quad summit would take place in India. So issues in the Indo-Pacific region could have also been discussed.
Yes, so a lot to look forward to where the India-US equation is concerned in this year itself. Thanks a lot for joining us, Amritpal Singh, on that significant conversation. Now, the US and Colombia have pulled back from the brink of a trade war on Sunday after the White House said the South American nation had agreed to accept military aircraft carrying deported migrants. US President Donald Trump had threatened tariffs and sanctions on Colombia to punish it for earlier refusing to accept military planes carrying deportees. Take a look at this report.
Colombia on Sunday backed down and agreed to accept deported citizens sent on US military aircraft hours after President Donald Trump threatened to pay in full tariffs to punish the defiance to his mass deportation plans. Colombia's President Gustavo Petro had earlier said he would only take back citizens with dignity, such as on civilian planes, and had turned back 2 US military aircraft with repatriated Colombians. Trump responded furiously and threatened sanctions of 25% that would quickly scale up to 50% against Latin America's fourth largest economy. Petro initially sought to hit back and impose his own tariffs on US products, but by the end of the volatile Sunday, he had backed down.
El gobierno de Colombia informa.
Colombian government informs it has got over its impasse with the government of the United States. In this context, Colombian Foreign Minister Luis Gilberto Murillo and Ambassador Daniel Garcia Pena will travel in the coming days to Washington, D.C. to have high-level meetings that follow up on the agreements resulting from the joint work that led to the exchange of diplomatic notes between the two governments.
Trump said he would suspend implementation of the tariffs. Secretary of State Marco Rubio suspended issuance of visas at the U.S. Embassy in Bogota and said visas would be revoked to Colombian government officials and their immediate family members. The White House said the visa measures would stay in place until the first plane load of deportees returns. Trump's deportation threats have put him on a potential collision course with governments in Latin America, the original home of most of the United States' estimated 11 million undocumented migrants. While previous U.S. administrations also routinely carried out deportations, the Trump administration has begun using military aircraft, with at least one landing in Guatemala this week. Kajal's report, DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Tens of thousands of Palestinians are returning to Gaza City as Hamas has agreed to release hostages and Israel has withdrawn its forces. A probe has been ordered into suspected sabotage of undersea cables linking Latvia and Sweden. And Chinese startup DeepSeek's AI assistant surpasses ChatGPT to top US Apple App Store downloads amid growing AI competition. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, 80 years ago, the gates of Auschwitz-Birkenau were flung open, revealing horrors that the world struggles to comprehend even today. The Nazi death camp, synonymous with genocide and unimaginable cruelty, stands as an enduring reminder of the Holocaust atrocities. As we mark Liberation Day, here's a look at Auschwitz's grim history and its devastating impact on millions of lives.
I often wished they would treat me as well as they treat their dogs, but they didn't.
Auschwitz-Birkenau, established in 1940 in the Polish town of Oswiecim, was the largest and most notorious of the Nazi death camps. Originally built as a detention center for political prisoners, it quickly became the epicenter of Adolf Hitler's final solution, the systematic extermination of European Jews. This camp was on more than one location. It was a network of suffering. Initially built on the grounds of a pre-war Polish army barracks, Auschwitz expanded into a vast complex with three main camps. Auschwitz I, the main camp where political prisoners were detained. Auschwitz II, Birkenau, the largest site of mass extermination holding over 90,000 prisoners at its peak. Auschwitz III, Monowitz, a network of over 40 subcamps where prisoners were exploited as slave labor. The Nazis transported prisoners from all over Europe to Auschwitz in cramped cattle wagons without food, water, and basic hygiene. Upon arrival, they were sorted. Those deemed unfit to work were sent straight to their deaths. Here's how Auschwitz worked. Victims were exposed to Zyklon B gas in sealed chambers. Their belongings were confiscated for sorting. Ashes of bodies were buried or used as fertilizer.
I remember the first such genuine severe pain, because we were shaved to the skin, of course, and it was boiling hot then. August 4th, yes, my ears were burnt because they were suddenly exposed for the first time in my life. It was terribly painful, I remember.
Between 1940 and 1945, Auschwitz became the site of the largest mass murder in human history. Of the 1.3 million sent there, 1.1 million died. Nearly 1 million of them Jewish men, women, and children. Others included 75,000 Polish civilians, 25,000 Roma, 15,000 Soviet prisoners of war, and countless others deemed undesirable by the Nazi regime. As the Soviet army advanced westward, in late 1944, the Nazis ordered the destruction of the gas chambers and crematoria to hide their crimes.
I was lying with the dead. The guards left me behind, thinking I was already gone. Then I saw a Russian soldier. He smiled at me and I felt hope. I felt free. It was like a second birth.
The Soviet army liberated Auschwitz on January 27, 1945. What they found was harrowing. 7,000 emaciated survivors, piles of corpses, and warehouses filled with shoes, glasses, and human hair. Before abandoning the camp, the Nazis forced 60,000 prisoners on death marches westward, with thousands dying along the way.
The essence of this story will always be the ferocity of those who controlled us.
Auschwitz is not just a grim chapter in history, it's a warning. It reminds us of the dangers of hate, the fragility of democracy, and the consequences of silence. It's a place where humanity's darkest impulses were laid bare, and the resilience of survivors like Ted Bolga and Eva Supezi reminds us of the strength to rebuild and hope. Bureau Report, DD India.
And a solemn ceremony is on even now at Auschwitz-Birkenau, where we're hearing testimonies of survivors and present in the audience, apart from a lot of survivors and others who were affected by this tragedy, are attendees such as Britain's King Charles and Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. And earlier in the day, what had happened was that a lot of these survivors had also gathered at Auschwitz again to pay homage to and remember the sacrifices of all those who had died. And among those was also Poland's President Andrzej Duda, who paid tributes at the site of the Nazi German death camp liberated by Soviet troops on this day in 1945. The occasion is likely to be one of the last such gatherings of those who experienced the horrors of the extermination camp. Related events are also being held in other parts of the world. Take a look.
More than 8 decades ago, it was the condemned who were marched slowly to the death wall outside Barrack 11 at Auschwitz. Monday saw around 50 Holocaust survivors returning to the site of horrors in Poland to lay wreaths and candles, some wearing scarves in the blue and white stripes of the Nazi death camp uniforms. Polish President Andrzej Duda also accompanied the survivors on the 80th anniversary of the liberation of the camp, marked worldwide as Holocaust Remembrance Day. He said Poland conserves sites like Auschwitz to serve as reminders of the past, which should never be repeated.
Poland takes care of those sites in order to protect the memory, in order to keep it alive so people always remember. And so through this remembrance, the world never again lets such a dramatic human catastrophe happen. And to be more precise, a catastrophe of humanity.
The day also saw French President Emmanuel Macron taking part in a ceremony at the Paris Holocaust Memorial. He laid a wreath inside the memorial where an army choir sang a Jewish hymn. Macron wrote in the visitor's book, "We will not give in to anti-Semitism in all its forms." On the eve of Holocaust Remembrance Day, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky paid homage to the victims of Nazi atrocities at the Babyn Memorial in Kyiv. Zelensky accompanied Israeli Ambassador Michael Brodsky, diplomats, rabbis and officials who took part in a ceremony at the site of one of the biggest single massacres of the Holocaust, where 33,771 Jewish men, women and children were killed in September 1941. About 70 kilometers away from Auschwitz, in Krakow, families of Israeli hostages still held by the Hamas gathered with posters and pleas to get them out of captivity.
We need to make sure that this isn't forgotten, that the 19 remaining hostages are freed, the live ones to recover, and the dead to a proper burial in our homeland.
And although Russian officials have not been invited to the commemorations in Poland for the third year running since the Ukraine offensive began, its President Vladimir Putin praised Soviet soldiers for ending the total evil of Auschwitz on the 80th anniversary of the Red Army's liberation of the Nazi death camp. Bureau Report, DD India.
And Britain's King Charles marked International Holocaust Memorial Day and the 80th anniversary of Auschwitz's liberation by visiting a Jewish community center in Krakow in Poland. And later in the day, he is at the moment with Auschwitz survivors to commemorate the camp's liberation by Soviet troops. And the Israeli Embassy in India marked International Holocaust Remembrance Day with a solemn ceremony at Triveni Kala Sangam in New Delhi. The event was attended by Minister of State for External Affairs Kirti Vardhan Singh, Israeli Deputy Ambassador Faris Saib and German Ambassador Philip Ackerman.
There's an old saying that if we forget history, history is bound to repeat itself. We must not forget this, one of the darkest chapters in human history. And we have to learn from it and evolve our outlook towards humanity very much in the way of the Indian sense, where in our country we welcomed all faiths, all cultures, all people for ages. And that is what makes our country great. That is what makes our civilizations great.
And we'll be talking about this inhuman chapter really of life on earth later on in the show with a special guest as well, as to why it is important to remember that such thing did transpire at one point of time, although it was 80 years ago. But for the moment, we're moving on. Tens of thousands of Palestinians returned to North Gaza after Hamas agreed to release hostages. As Israeli forces are withdrawing, residents have returned to Gaza City, expressing relief and hope. Meanwhile, hostage negotiations are still on, with Qatar, Egypt and the US playing key roles in the ongoing efforts to secure peace in the region. Dheeraj Das has filed this report.
Tens of thousands of Palestinians streamed along the main roads leading north in Gaza on Monday, after Hamas agreed to hand over 3 Israeli hostages later this week, and Israeli forces began to withdraw from a main corridor across the enclave. The first residents arrived in Gaza City in early morning after the first crossing point in central Gaza opened at 7 a.m. Another crossing opened around 3 hours later, letting in vehicles. People in large number, some holding infants in their arms, some carrying their belongings on their shoulders, headed north on foot along a road running by the Mediterranean seashore.
We are very happy to be back to our land and to Gaza. A salute to all the fighters and a salute to everyone who fought with us and a salute to everyone who helped us and supported us. Thanks to everyone who extended a hand to us, and we are very happy and victorious. It is true that we got tired, but in the end we were victorious.
Meanwhile, Hamas on Monday said that it had handed over to mediators a list that showed that 25 of 33 hostages scheduled for release in the first phase are alive. The figure of 35 included the 7 hostages released since the truce began on January 19. Israel previously said they believe most of the 33 are alive. Earlier, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu had said that another 6 hostages would be released in the coming week after talks with Hamas. Netanyahu's office said that 3 hostages would be released on Thursday and another 3 on Saturday. As Qatar led the efforts together with Egypt and the United States to negotiate the deal to end the conflict in Gaza, Qatari Prime Minister said he regretted the amount of time it took for the Gaza deal to be reached.
We have been through a very long process that's been sometimes, and many times, very frustrating for us as mediators. And what's really, what we feel sad about is that it took that much to get to an agreement that we have, agreed on a framework since December 23.
Around 650,000 people were displaced from northern Gaza during the conflict, which was triggered by Hamas' October 7, 2023 assault on southern Israel, in which 12,000 people were killed and more than 250 hostages were abducted in the Hamas attack in October 2023. Around half were released the following month during the war's only previous truce, and another have been recovered dead or alive during the fighting. Israel still lists 90 captives in Gaza, with around 30 declared dead in absentia. Dheeraj Das report for DD India.
Now, Chinese startup DeepSeek's AI assistant has surged to the top of the US Apple App Store, surpassing ChatGPT as the highest rated free app. Launched on the 10th of this month, the app is powered by DeepSeek's V3 model and has quickly gained popularity among US users. The company claims its assistant uses lower cost chips and less data, which may help it stand out in the competitive AI space. Meanwhile, Nasdaq futures dropped by over 3% and tech stocks weakened, casting doubt on the profitability of AI. The S&P 500 hit over 1-week lows with drops by over 1.8% on Monday. And still to come up on DD India News Hour, we'll be speaking with our expert guests about how and why is it important to talk about the Holocaust 80 years on. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy, and before we go any further, another look at some of our top stories. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulates US President Donald Trump over the phone over his second term, says both leaders are committed to mutually beneficial and trusted partnership. India and China agreed to restart direct flights 5 years after the Galwan pause. Kailash Mansarovar Yatra to also resume in the summer this year. And world leaders gather along with survivors at Nazi death camp in Poland's Auschwitz-Birkenau to mark the 80th anniversary of Holocaust Remembrance Day. And let's now talk about how Holocaust Remembrance Day is being commemorated through especially the memories of the survivors, over 50 of them gathering in Auschwitz this time around, perhaps the last time that they will gather in such large numbers for a long time to come, for the future, any foreseeable future. We're joined by Professor Salma Bawa, Center of European Studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University in Delhi. Professor Bawa, good evening. What do you make of this sort of a gathering and all, in fact, the commemorations, the marking of Holocaust remembrance throughout the day today?
Good evening and thank you, Gautam. I think it's important to reiterate that, the past sometimes is witness to things which we don't want ever to be repeated. There's a saying that if you don't remember the past, you are condemned to repeat it. And I think 80 years on, many generations have come and gone. History, becomes something which is then in books and stories and movies and films. But what took place 80 years back is about a dark moment in history. And it calls attention never to forget that, so that those kind of atrocities, the Holocaust, does not ever take place again. And it is about recognize the human rights of all individuals. So it's an important moment. It is very solemn. There are few survivors 80 years later. And, we are close to, 20 years coming up when it will be a 100-year period. So I think in that sense, given the kind of identity politics also which is coming up, it's important to recognize a past which continues to, still influence politics, policies, and the way people live and engage with each other. But more importantly, to take stock as, human beings, that we all have a responsibility to each other.
Yes, and if you talk about the kind of ideology that led to these atrocities in Auschwitz and many other places, Auschwitz was the worst really, but there were other concentration and extermination camps that the Nazis had put together. The ideology that it stems from, do you think that is also something that perhaps people need to be warned about, because one, it is anti-Semitism, yes, definitely, but it goes much beyond that. It's about almost an all-pervading hate apart from one race.
Yeah, so I think, what began at a historical point in time, the policy of the Nazis to kind of systematically exterminate a group of people by labeling them, also points to how hate, can be generated, sustained, and then taken to the ultimate step of, systematically removing people. I think it's important in the sense Two things. One, Germany took the decision in 1996 by the then President Roman Herzog that there should be this Holocaust Remembrance Day. And then in 2005, the United Nations also decided. So I think in that it's important that one learns about it. One learns, what can be done in terms of collective action, how people sometimes, overtly and covertly can become part of it. And if you do not recognize what has happened in the past, then the danger is that in many ways, one will target other people. Hate is something that can be manufactured and sustained over long periods of time. And therefore, one of the important points of the Remembrance Day today is also to recognize that we need to educate people to understand history, to recognize that, you cannot, practice this kind of hate against anybody.
Yes, and do you feel that the danger is even more in these times, our present times, because of not just the kind of ideological roots that are still there perhaps, but also because the kind of tools that Nazi Germany had at its disposal to dispense its ideology and the sense of hate and entitledness, really those were blunt tools compared to what we have today in the information age, in the age of AI.
Absolutely, Gautam. I mean, you just said it. I mean, what was used at that point in time, in the 30s in Germany, was a very different era. Today, hate is kind of packaged and goes directly into everybody's inbox. Can you think of the kind of way the poison can slowly spread all around, and one is sometimes not even aware? And I think more importantly, different age groups may or may not, especially the young, have that kind of discernment about what they are consuming, which is coming over social media. So I think it becomes more incumbent on all of us collectively as a society, to also to come together and say that, okay, hate in any form has to be, pushed back, and one has to have constantly what is to remember is to engage. Why does it come? Because, there is unknown fears. And if there is no space to have conversations and recognize that most of these fears are unfounded, it's very easy to plant the seed that the other is an enemy, the other is to be hated. So I think today the task of recognizing what this day stands for is even more acute, given how quickly people are forming opinions and judgments, and how quickly people, and especially the young, a generation which is only growing up consuming social media, can be kind of, totally converted to believing in messages of hate for anybody and everybody.
Yes, certainly. That is always the danger, especially when divisiveness is rising in the world. We've seen that happening most recently in the US election outcome as well. But we'll have to see how things go from here on. Just good to remember that the past holds a lot of lessons for us, and one such lesson can be picked up today itself from the commemoration of Holocaust Day. Thank you for joining us, Professor Baba.
Thank you.
Now, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has attended the annual National Cadet Corps rally at the Cariappa Parade Ground in New Delhi. Prime Minister Modi inspected the impressive parade at the annual NCC Rally 2025. The theme for this year's NCC PM Rally was Yuva Shakti Viksit Bharat, which is Hindi for India's Youth Developed India. The Prime Minister was also accorded a Guard of Honour by the cadets. A total of 2,361 NCC cadets participated in the Republic Day camp this year, with over 917 girl cadets, which remains the highest ever participation by girl cadets so far. The PM also presented the Best Cadet Awards among others. The rally marks the successful culmination of a month-long NCC Republic Day Camp 2025. A cultural program by more than 800 cadets showcasing commitment of NCC towards nation building was also performed. 144 young cadets from 18 friendly foreign countries also added fervour to this year's rally. Addressing the event, Prime Minister Modi said that the NCC has constantly inspired the youth of India towards nation building.
भारत के युवा सिर्फ भारत के लिए नहीं बल्कि फोर्स फॉर ग्लोबल गुड है। भारत में बीते दशक में युवाओं ने 1.5 लाख स्टार्टअप्स और 100 से ज्यादा यूनिकॉर्न्स बनाए हैं। आज दुनिया की 200 से ज्यादा बड़ी कंपनियों को भारतीय मूल के लोग लीड कर रहे हैं। यानी कोई भी सेक्टर हो, भारत की युवा शक्ति, भारत के टैलेंट के बिना दुनिया के भविष्य की कल्पना भी मुश्किल है। भारत के युवा सिर्फ भारत के लिए नहीं बल्कि फोर्स फॉर ग्लोबल गुड है। भारत में बीते दशक में युवाओं ने 1.5 लाख स्टार्टअप्स और 100 से ज्यादा यूनिकॉर्न्स बनाए हैं। आज दुनिया की 200 से ज्यादा बड़ी कंपनियों को भारतीय मूल के लोग लीड कर रहे हैं। यानी कोई भी सेक्टर हो, भारत की युवा शक्ति, भारत के टैलेंट के बिना दुनिया के भविष्य की कल्पना भी मुश्किल है।
And the PM is scheduled to visit the East Indian state of Odisha on Tuesday to inaugurate the Utkarsh Odisha Make in Odisha Conclave 2025.
Bhubaneswar, the capital of the eastern Indian coastal state of Odisha, is all decked up, the cultural exuberance on full display. The state is all set to highlight its industrial prowess to attract domestic as well as international investors during the two-day Utkarsh Odisha Make in Odisha Conclave 2025. It starts January 28 in Bhubaneswar. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will inaugurate the flagship economic and business conclave during his visit to Bhubaneswar on Tuesday. The event will primarily focus on three themes of Startup Odisha, Skilled in Odisha, and Women Entrepreneurship.
We have more than 8,000 delegates who have already registered for the event. Almost 2,000 of them have already arrived at Bhubaneswar and are very excited about the entire event. More importantly, this time, because we are working very closely with Government of India, Invest India, DPIIT and other central ministries, we have the presence of industrialists from across sectors. We have 16 countries participating for the first time. And this obviously is because of the keen interest being taken by our Honorable Prime Minister in Purvodaya, in Eastern India, his Look East policy.
The conclave, a key step in achieving the vision of Samruddh Odisha 2036 and contributing to the national aspiration of Viksit Bharat 2047, will highlight Odisha's immense potential as a key player in India's industrial growth story.
So it's Invest in Odisha and Future of Odisha. We all are excited. Tata Power is always a partner and a big distribution company with government for electricity. So we all are very excited to be the part of the future of Odisha.
The event will focus on 5 key sectors: IT, renewable energy, textiles, chemicals and food processing. 12 countries, including Australia, Malaysia, Japan, Germany, Poland and Cuba, have been invited as countries of focus to participate in the conclave. Achievements of 60 micro, small and medium enterprises entrepreneurs aged under 40 will also be highlighted at the conclave. It will be a highlight at Utkarsh Odisha. The conclave aims to position Odisha as a global industrial hub while driving inclusive and sustainable growth. Top industry captains are also expected to participate in it.
With more than 7,500 delegates, with over 100 foreign delegates and diplomats, and India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurating it, the event is set to put Odisha on a global economic platform. With camera person Rahul Chopra, Amit Mukherjee for DD India in Bhubaneswar.
Now, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, who is on a 3-day visit to the UAE, attended India's Republic Day celebrations in Abu Dhabi. Addressing the event, Dr. Jaishankar highlighted India's progress in the last 10 years under Prime Minister Modi's leadership.
Today, we have reached a stage where our aspirations are higher and our confidence greater. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has set out a national goal of achieving Viksit Bharat or developed India by 2047. If we have embarked on that quest with strong conviction, it is because in the last decade, in particular, we have witnessed achievements that tell us what is possible. Sustained growth rates, embrace of digital technology, building a modern infrastructure, strengthening human skills, and improving the quality of governance are amongst its notable features.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Over 100 million gather at the Maha Kumbh in Prayagraj, with technology aiding in reuniting separated families. And West Indies script history by winning a test match in Pakistan for the first time in 35 years.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, tensions were escalated in the Baltic Sea after an undersea fiber optic cable linking Latvia and Sweden was damaged, sparking suspicions of sabotage. The incident took place on Sunday, with Latvia reporting significant damage to an undersea cable, likely caused by external interference. NATO has swiftly responded by deploying patrol ships under its Baltic Sentry mission, while Sweden launched a sabotage investigation. Latvian Prime Minister emphasized coordination with NATO and Baltic nations to uncover the truth.
An undersea fiber optic cable between Latvia and Sweden was damaged in the Baltic Sea on Sunday. The cable linked the Latvian town of Ventspils with Sweden's Gotland Island. The cable belonged to Latvia's state radio and television center and sits at a depth exceeding 50 meters. An inquiry has been launched involving Sweden's police, military and coast guard, but an initial investigation pointed to sabotage. However, on Monday, the Swedish Coast Guard chased and intercepted a Bulgarian ship. Bulgarian shipping company said that one of the ship's anchors dropped to seafloor in high winds, and there wasn't any malicious intent.
The ship was sailing in a very bad weather conditions. It is possible that the ship had caused that problem with the cable, but in my opinion, there is absolutely no way that we are talking about an act of sabotage or whatever other action on behalf of our crew.
On Sunday, Latvia's military reported that 3 ships were seen in the area where the damage occurred. Latvia is working with Sweden and NATO allies to exchange information as the incident is still being investigated. Latvian Prime Minister said that they were working closely with Sweden and NATO in response to the incident.
We have also determined that damage is most likely from an external force and it must be quite significant. And the naval forces have also been involved and have surveilled the potential area.
Earlier this month, NATO launched its new Baltic Sentry mission after several cables under the Baltic Sea were damaged in 2024. NATO Chief Mark Rutte said the mission would involve more patrol aircraft, warships and drones. Under the Baltic Sea, there are dozens of vulnerable internet and power cables laid mostly unprotected on the seabed. More than 95% of internet traffic globally is carried via undersea cables. Repairs can be costly and damage can take months to fix. Although undersea networks often have built-in redundancy, a concerted attack could paralyze many nations' communications networks and jeopardizing hospital surgeries. In a life dependent on the Internet of Things, a ship's anchor dragged hundreds of miles away can ruin your day. Aman Kumar Himanshu's report for DD India.
And now let's get you all the latest from the Maha Kumbh, the largest gathering of humans on the planet. Now, over 100 million people have already attended the world's largest religious congregation, the Maha Kumbh in Prayagraj. Now, at this Maha Kumbh, one of the biggest issues of concern have always remained the issue of reuniting people who get separated, for which the authorities are now using technology to provide respite. Here's a report by DD India's correspondent Akshay Dongre from Prayagraj.
Devotees waiting patiently to get information of their friends and family members who have gotten separated at the world's largest religious congregation, Maha Kumbh in Prayagraj city in India. Over 100 million people have so far attended Maha Kumbh, and even larger number of devotees is expected to attend the congregation in the upcoming days. Amid this ocean of people, the largest concern remains to unite people who often get separated or lost in the city. To address this issue, the government has set up computerized lost and found centers that are run 24/7. These centers are using various technologies to provide respite to people, including live translation, artificial intelligence and biometric identification. 80-year-old Ram Prasad, who got lost at Kumbh, speaks to the workers at the Lost and Found Center to reunite with his family. He calls such center essential at such a large congregation. The workers at the center claim they have reunited over 1,000 people who got separated with their family members and thousands who have an item at the Maha Kumbh.
Hosting the world's largest congregation comes with its own set of challenges, and one of the key challenges is to reunite people who often get lost in such a huge gathering. Now, Kumbh is held at a place where there is a confluence of rivers, River Ganga, River Yamuna and Saraswati as well. And at the same place, this time around, the authorities have made sure that it also becomes a confluence of faith and technology to ensure a smooth Maha Kumbh experience for the several hundred million devotees that are going to come here, not only from India, but from around the world. With camera person Vinay Kumar Tiwari, I'm Akshay Dongre, DD India.
And time now to get you some sporting updates as well. And first up in sports, India's space bowler Jasprit Bumrah on Monday was named as ICC Men's Test Cricketer of the Year. The Indian spearhead has an excellent 2024 in both the home and away conditions. He picked up 71 wickets in 13 matches. Indian women's team opener Smriti Mandhana on Monday was also named as ICC Women's ODI Cricketer of the Year 2024. The 28-year-old Mandhana had a stellar year with the bat in the 50 overs format. She scored back-to-back hundreds in a 3-0 home series win against South Africa in June. West Indies scripted history as they won a test match in Pakistan for the first time in nearly 35 years on Monday. Spinner Jomel Warikan took 5 wickets to lead Windies to a 120-run win in the second test to draw the series 1-1. The last time the West Indies won a test in Pakistan was in Faisalabad in November 1990. Now, the Indian hill state of Uttarakhand is set to host the 38th National Games from the 28th of this month to the 14th of February, that's Valentine's Day. Now, with events spread across 11 cities, the Games promise to be a spectacular showcase of sports and heritage. Over 10,000 athletes, officials and coaches will compete in 32 disciplines and 4 demonstration events. Prime Minister Modi will inaugurate the Games at Maharana Pratap Sports College in Dehradun, marking a significant moment for Uttarakhand's emergence as a sporting hub.
Uttarakhand, the land of lofty peaks and serene valleys, is ready to script a new chapter in its journey. Known as the Dev Bhumi or the land of gods, it now transforms into the land of games. The state is all set to host the 38th National Games from January 28 to February 14. Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, will officially declare the Games open at a glittering ceremony at the Maharana Pratap Sports College in Dehradun on Tuesday. This marks a significant milestone for Uttarakhand, showcasing its emergence as a major sports destination. Like its rivers that flow through valleys, carrying life and energy, the National Games will flow across 11 cities.
So National Games, we are looking really forward to, play our maximum, to put maximum effort, because usually it used to happen in 4 years. So I have played in 2015 and I was lucky enough to play in 2022 also. So this is my third National Games. So I'm so happy that I could come here and play for my state.
The ground, the infrastructure is also built up very nicely. And the players are getting more and more chances of playing with international players and showcasing their talents also.
The games promise a blend of modern and traditional hues. With 32 disciplines and 4 demonstration sports, Kalari Payattu, Yogasana, Malakhamb and rafting. More than 10,000 athletes, officials and coaches from states, union territories and institutional teams will compete for glory.
As Himalayan peaks stand tall, a symbol of strength and aspiration, Uttarakhand is leaving no stone unturned to make the 35th edition of National Games a grand success. With more than 10,000 athletes and officials and also 11 venues, it's going to be a grand spectacle of sports in Uttarakhand. With camera person Manmohan, Narayan Singh, DD India, Dehradun.
Now let's talk about Hockey India League. Well, Delhi SG Pipers ended their Hockey India campaign winless as they fell to a 1-2 loss against the Shashi Bengal Tigers at the Birsa Munda Hockey Stadium in Rourkela on Monday. The Pipers scored first via Thomas Dumaney, but their hopes for a first win in their last match were shattered as Rupinder Pal Singh and Sebastian Dokier scored within minutes of each other in the final quarter to take the Tigers to the top of the table. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. You can scan the QR code and download the app right now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.